So Frank, unlike last time, I want to start back and ask who you are and tell me a little bit about your background and your history.
Born 4/9/45, just a few days before World War II. That would be April 9th. It ended April 15th over the European theater, and then of course it ended with the bomb in Japan on August 15th, I think. And then my dad was a guy who was a welder type guy, and he started this place right around then, thereabouts, and then I came in here at 11 years old.
Wow.
And
you started working at 11? Or?
Yeah, I wanted to come at 10, but my mother wouldn't let us come in here, so I begged. Finally, she relented, and therefore I'm here. And what we're sitting in now was built in 1957, and then behind the steampunk furnace, we call it, that was built in the 63, I think, before, right around there. And then that's 17,000 square feet, but I grew up in this place.
Okay.
And then,
did you literally grow up on this property, or?
we moved out here from Benton Harbor in 1952 with the house up front. And then my dad worked out there, and we lived in that house until 1957. He built one downtown Stevensville, up on Kemple Street. Then we worked, and this is all we did. We worked for your father. There's 3 boys, 2 older ones, and younger one, and then sisters.
Okay.
This is all we've ever done. And of course, I went to school and everything. And the background is actually in the welding steel fabrication. And then,
did you go to school for that, or you learned?
well, I didn't go to school for that. I went to school for business.
Yeah.
First school I went to was out of high school was Whirlpool Technical Institute, and that was how to run lathes and things like that. It was a tech school. Then I went to Western business, and then as I started out in engineering, I go, well, this is not teaching me what I want to teach or be taught. So yeah, I had to learn some business, and then learn how to ask the check with the numbers and all that type of thing, debit, credit, and all that. But then, because I'd already learned a lot, I started here at 11. I had a crew at 16 years old, and so put some machines together, and we worked 6 days a week. And to have something to do, we did this.
So, how did you get interested? I know you have, from talking with you over the years, that politics is something that you're interested in reading about, that you think about it. How did you get interested? I know you told me like you liked John Kennedy, but then you kind of changed over to the Republican Party after a certain point. Can you explain that?
Well, John Kennedy, of course, his first 2 years, he cut taxes.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of things like this, like our president's doing. Almost him and Reagan and Kennedy, Reagan and Trump were all pretty much on the same agenda, anyway, in my mind, anyway. So they, we back in the 60s, we had groups, your coffee groups, whatever you want to call them. We would sit and argue all the time, discussions, and most of it was after LBJ got in there, he took it a different direction than what Kennedy did, a little bit more liberal.
Kind of the welfare state.
Yeah. He signed the 1964. He signed the can't remember the name of it. He signed the
Civil Rights Act.
Civil Rights Act. Right?
Yeah.
And it went from there, and then I just if something's yours and they take it away, it's not, nobody's happy, such as your heavy taxes and things like that. Now the Democrats have the thinking of tax and spend as they want to see it. So, and I'm the other way around.
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying that we don't have taxes, but I like to pay a lot less.
Right. Yeah.
And they take that money and I think they pander to people.
Okay.
As the other side does too. I mean, they pander for this, and then they want your vote. That's what they do. They only want the votes anyway. But other than that, it's just more conservative aspect of the whole deal. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. Just more conservative, and I don't like the way that the Democrats are taking it, where Obama, the last administration was taking this country. It was like they were picking away at it, and they were shooting towards that new world order, and he was pulling everything. We are the best country in the world. There's no question about that, and the strongest, and I think it made the country weak.
You just talked a little bit about how you changed and your conservative philosophy. So what are your real hot buttons in terms of where Obama was taking us and where the Democrats have been taking us? What really kind of...
Well, I feel that, the American Health Care Act,
Yep.
or Obamacare is what he calls it, they kind of like, they've been working on this for over 40 years, I know that for sure.
Mhm.
Because of the wording of the act, if you go in and read those pages, 2,800 pages, and if you go and read them, I read most of them.
Right.
And there's some things, the words that they used, say 20, 25 years ago, they don't use them now. PC, correct, et cetera, things like that. But they've been working on this thing a long while, and then...
Well, and to be fair, Democrats and Republicans have been working. I mean,
Well,
Nixon,
sure.
Nixon actually, one point introduced health care. He was an interesting blend, but I don't want to get off.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're just talking about the Obama, that's what you asked.
Yeah.
I got words about Nixon too, but the healthcare thing, I have friends right now that if Hillary had been president, she would have been paying almost $15,000 a year for her health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
When about 3 years ago it was a lot cheaper, it was down to about $300 or $400 a month. Now, talking about $1,300-1,400, that's a lot of money per year, just for health care. And then listen to the radio, these guys were talking, one guy was saying, I'd have paid $24,000 a year for my wife and myself. So it actually, he kind of like, and he did say he wanted to spread that wealth around a little bit, which is not more of a socialist, it's a socialist way of thinking. They want to take your money and give it to somebody else.
So let me just raise one question about healthcare. We're kind of going to wander around based on where the conversation takes us. But what about pre-existing conditions? So one of the things that the law did was it prevented insurance companies from dropping people when people who had been covered for years got cancer, they'd be dropped.
Well,
This
the
law
catastrophe
prevented
thing
that
that
from
you're
occurring.
talking about, I think Nixon was going to do this, and or anybody else, if you think about it, the healthcare company or the health people, I think would have taken care of you up to a certain point. Let's say your bill gets up to a couple $100,000, and I think the government could put something in there and help you with after $200,000.
But I'm talking about prior to the new law.
Right, I know what you're talking about.
Prior to the new law, if you, Frank Small, got cancer,
Right.
and you're in the individual market, you weren't in the group market, which is what the law covers really, because the group market is not part of the law so much. Group companies can have their own insurance that they had before. But in the individual market, you would have been dropped if you had gotten cancer.
I understand that.
And is that fair?
Well, no, I think some should have been done. There's no question about that.
But that's a big part of why premiums, that was what caused the people who framed the law to ask for the mandated insurance, because by having a bigger pool of healthy people, you could then finance the fact that pre-existing conditions would be part of the law. Otherwise, you can't have coverage for pre-existing conditions.
But it didn't work out. They couldn't get the 100% of participation. The rate was bad.
But yet, rates went up somewhat, but not for the first few years. Now they went
That's
up
correct.
in the
They
last
didn't
year.
go up, and all of a sudden, zoom after now,
Yeah,
they went crazy.
I think we forget. I mean, rates have been going up for a long, long, long time.
Oh, I know all
healthcare
about
rates.
that.
I mean, we got an older population. Rates have been going up. So I'm not disagreeing that maybe the market has gotten changed by the new healthcare law. Also, another factor with the premiums going up just in the last year or two is that insurance companies aren't sure that it's actually going to be supported by the Trump administration, who has cut off a lot of the subsidies that were supposed to go to the insurance companies for the higher risk pools. And that's why premiums in part have gone up. You know, so those risk corridors, that's what it's called under the law, they are what go to the insurance companies to keep the premiums where they were. Those have been cut back by Congress and by the Trump administration. In fact, that's what that lady in Maine, Susan Collins, wants restored. If you've been reading about the deal she reached when she voted yes for the tax bill,
Right.
it was to restore those risk corridors. I'm just saying it's not exactly clear that the new law has caused rates to skyrocket. In some markets, yes, but overall, the evidence is mixed.
Was it clear in Obamacare too?
I'm talking about Obamacare. You know, that, you know, the rates have gone up,
Yeah.
but not necessarily because of the structure of Obamacare. In part, it's because of the uncertainty in the market due to the lack of support for the law in the last year. The risk corridors have been taken away. That's a subsidy that companies have relied on. That was part of the law in order to cover the higher risk people that they were taking on. I'm just pointing that out. Yeah, I know you're still opposed to the law, and
Of what, Obamacare?
yeah,
I'm not happy with it.
yeah.
No, I think they were making people that are 60 years old take out pregnancy type insurance. I mean, you know, you should be able to pick and choose what you want and pay for that as you go. And then the people that has the cancer, the catastrophe thing that would happen to them, there should be something in there for them too. There's no question about that.
Okay,
But there
those
should
are,
be some help.
but those are fixes to the law.
Those are what?
Those are fixes to the law.
Right.
That's not a full repeal.
I understand.
You know, so I take it you're for the full repeal if it could have been done.
They're never going to repeal it. I don't feel they're going to get a full repeal on this thing.
Because now that it's in, it can't be taken back. Is that?
It's going to be real tough to do, but they can.
Yeah.
Well, they can change some of the regulations of it.
Yeah.
But,
So you're a very reasonable person, though, because there are a lot of people who are just totally up in arms about the law and repeal. You've got to just take it away. By the way, I think that, you know, one could argue that given that it was passed by one party, I think we're now seeing what happens when all of these bills get passed by one party without bipartisan input. They don't end up lasting or sticking because they don't represent the will of the entire population. You know, they're not democratically arrived at, and it's not good for democracy. That's my commentary.
Well,
But
that's-
anyway.
So
So-
they had it for a while now. We got it for a while, and they're going to get it back for a while. It's going to, you know, we'll see on the next election how it goes. This next November of this year, we'll see how that goes. If the Democrats gain some seats or they lose some seats in the Senate. There's 16 senators that Democrat seats are up this time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the House they're up every 2 years. But we'll see how that twists out. And if they get back the majority, or, well, I don't know if they're going to get the majority, but maybe in the House they will. I don't know. We'll see. But from what I've been hearing, it's just like when Hillary was running, everybody thought Hillary was going to win. And of course, there's all the newscasters, everybody was slanted with her, and of course against Trump. And I really believe that Trump didn't think he was going to win either.
So let's talk about the media for a second. What do you think about the media? You don't have to be guarded.
No, I'm just trying to.
although this video will be seen by people.
I don't want to say
so-
any mantras or anything, but
Yeah, I mean, but
well, Jimmy Carter said that Jimmy Carter now.
Yeah.
We know who he was. He says that the press is not treating Trump very fairly at all. And they seem to report all the negative things. They don't hear any positive things that he's done. They report all the negative things. And he's done a lot of positive, good, great things. There's no question about that. But nobody knows about it. The press doesn't.
what are the positive things?
Well, there's a lot of positive things. I think he's done 350 days, I think, right around that area. He's been in office. He's done 173 things.
What things?
Well, let's start with the TPP. Got us out of that.
Okay, let's stop there for a second.
Okay.
TPP was an agreement that the U.S. helped broker was a big part of and would have established this same kind of rule-based trading system for East Asia, and it was an alternative to China taking the lead. China was not part of TPP. It had a set of rules that also reformed part of NAFTA. I don't know if you're,
Yeah, there was a touch of it in there, though.
there was some NAFTA reform as well. It had some provisions for fair labor, as much as you can get into those agreements, because those countries that are poor are not going to agree to the same labor standards that we have. They can't. And in bilateral agreements, you're not going to agree with that either. So, by rejecting TPP, what's happened? The East Asian countries are going back and they're negotiating their own TPP without us and with China. Is that a good thing?
You mean they're on their own?
They're on their own. They're doing it on their own without us.
Without our
Same
help?
set of rules. Without us, though. And they're modifying it to
Benefit them?
To benefit, well, to benefit them and to include China. Because China's now part of it. China has now taken the mantra of free trade leader in the world. Is that a good thing?
Well, most of your conservatives will always want free trade.
But do you want China to be setting the rules and to be the leader
Is China
of free
setting the
trade?
rules?
Yes, they are.
You think they are?
They are in this
They're in
agreement.
trouble.
And they are in this agreement, and they weren't now, and they weren't before.
Well, they're in trouble, you know that.
Okay, but answer the question. Do you think on the TPP that it's a good thing? Why is it good that we rejected TPP? Why?
I think we were giving them too much money.
Giving who too much money?
The TPP thing.
But it's an agreement with all of East Asia.
But it was
to
like an
spur
agreement,
trade.
and we had no teeth in it at all. I felt that way. That we're just giving too much away and not getting enough back.
Well, it's tariffs to allow exports of American automobiles. It provided some lowering of tariffs in East Asia that weren't there before. It would have spurred trade, bilateral trade between the U.S. and these other countries.
You don't like bilateral trade?
No, I mean multilateral trade.
Multilateral.
Yeah, it would have set a rules-based system just like with NAFTA. So I take it you don't like NAFTA either.
Well, has it done any good?
It has spurred a whole set of, it has increased trade dramatically between China and Mexico and the U.S.
Yeah, what about our companies that go down to Mexico? And a lot of them went down there. But a lot of them have come back.
So it's created an entire supply chain where there's agricultural goods going down to Mexico, and there's manufacturing that's gone down to, that's the agricultural goods exported to Mexico, manufacturing that's been replaced into Mexico, not necessarily good for American workers. So by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you that there are negative effects, but I think that the question on balance is, has NAFTA hurt us or helped us over the years? And I think that's a complicated economic, question.
Big time complications. I think the jury's still out on it, to be honest with you.
So how about with Canada? We talked about this last time, and I kind of indicated that, and asked, isn't there a problem with the trade deficit we have with Canada?
I think they're giving us more than we're giving them.
Yeah, so that was a trick, discussion, because there's a $36 billion surplus with Canada. And we have a 50-something billion, 55 or something billion deficit with Mexico. But we'd have a deficit with Mexico anyway. They're a low-cost producer. We end up having deficits with developing countries. It's kind of the way the world trade system is structured.
Yeah, it's been
but
that
how
way
are we
for a
going
long
to
time.
stop that? I'm just
Yeah, how are we
asking.
going to stop that? How are we going to do that? How are we going to...
Is protectionism an answer?
Well, look what Europeans turned into a big socialist state.
Okay, but they have trade deficits as well with some of these countries.
Right.
With China. But, so the question is, do we become protectionist? Would that be a recipe for success?
Protectionism, I don't think is good.
Well, then what's the alternative to these trade agreements?
Well, you're talking about the free trade. And then,
Yes.
But is that bad?
I'm still convinced that we should have gotten out of the TPP.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all. Then the Paris Agreement?
Now let's talk about the Paris Agreement.
It was what?
Let's talk about the Paris Agreement. So was that helpful to the prestige of the U.S. to get out of the Paris Agreement?
I think it was.
How come?
we are the greatest country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to remain so,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be careful on what you say and what you do and who you trade with and who you're going with. And look at Caterpillar. Look what's happened to Caterpillar, which is a big outfit. And look what Komatsu has done with that. And to be on the world market, Caterpillar was pretty much out there all the time, but the Komatsu's came in and they've copied them almost 100%. You can buy the same bearings for a Komatsu is the same bearing for.
But so this is the world market. How do you stop any of that? I mean, do we stop it by not competing anymore? I mean, don't we need to compete? And isn't being part of that competitive world market overall, have not we gained a great deal? Maybe not jobs. So I can agree that from a point of view of jobs for middle class people, manufacturing jobs, those have gone away in large part because of technology, not just trade. But, you know, in terms of overall wealth of the U.S., haven't we gained tremendously from all these great trade agreements? Especially the 1% have gained tremendously from these trade agreements. I'm asking, what do you think?
Well, how much wealth have we gained in the last year? Especially with the market going up 25%.
Okay, I mean that's that's all part of it. I mean we're still in the free trade regime.
That's correct.
And we've had those kinds of gains since World War II as part of that free trade.
And they're going to repatriate the money. They're going to try to bring that money back in so they'll tax it one time. We're talking trillions of dollars.
But back to protectionism. So getting rid of TPP, really was it beneficial to us? From the point of view of leadership in the free trade world, should we stop free trade? I mean, if we're going to be the leader of the free trade world in the rules-based system, isn't it the way we want to go?
So you're saying TPP is a free trade type
Absolutely.
system?
Absolutely. It's a multilateral
so in other words,
agreement.
If we do a free trade, and China didn't want to be a part of it, as I know, because
yes.
they didn't want to be.
They did not want to be
right.
a part of it.
And so, in other words, if we want to sell Buicks over there, if we sell a $50,000 Buick here, they want 100% tax on it over there. Now that's not free trade.
Well, that's China.
But that's only a...
But this was an agreement between the U.S. and the rest of East Asia. So I'm just saying, was it not beneficial to have that kind of agreement as a means of not just...
Well, what it does is going to take the jobs out of the United States and put them over there. That's what you were just talking about a few minutes ago.
Okay, but won't it also increase the flow of goods across borders and help with trade? I mean, what about the benefits of trade in general? You know, I mean, there's been tremendous benefits of trade. And it's made us far more competitive in the long run. You know, yes, we see the trade deficits, but part of that is also part of us being the reserve currency of the world. You know, because we can print money and because other countries want our dollars.
Right.
We have a higher exchange rate than we would have otherwise. To the tune, people say, of 2 to 3% of GDP, trade deficit. There's a trade-off there. Do we want to be the military power, and printing money allows us to finance our military abroad? If we couldn't print that money, weren't the reserve currency, we might do better on the trade deficit, but we wouldn't be able to finance our military abroad. So what's the trade-off that we want to have?
Well, first of all, we are the strongest nation in the world when it comes to the military. And I feel in the last 8 years we've gone down quite a bit. That's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
In the year 2025, China is going to pass us in the amount of ships at sea.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Where do they get their money? Do they get it from us? Of course they do. With this trade thing. And then, but they buy our bonds basically, and they're making our money. Well, the last administration has made your money worth less today than it was yesterday. So you're making money worth.
Why?
They inflate it. It's inflation.
We haven't had much inflation over the last few years.
Not yet. But inflation is brought upon us by the government by overprinting money, and they've been doing that for 8 years, don't you think?
So we did have
for $10 trillion more in debt than we were 8 years ago.
We did have a policy where we increase the money supply dramatically. Maybe not needed. It did keep interest rates low. It doesn't seem to have increased inflation. There hasn't been an
Not
increase in
yet.
inflation.
It's coming.
Well, it's coming, but not necessarily as a result of that. You know, we'll need
As
to
soon as they quit printing the money, they slow down. They're not going to slow down, but they are going to slow down. We're not going to be at the end of this 8-year run that with this administration. They're not going to be another $10 trillion in debt. That they figure about 4.
So what I've read, so let's go to the tax bill for a minute.
The new one that they just
Yeah,
passed.
so we talked about that a little bit, but let's go back over. So one of the objections that core conservatives have to that tax bill is that it's going to increase the deficit. And I know in talking with you, you thought the growth would be so strong that the deficit wouldn't increase, but 43 out of 44 economists see that the deficit will increase.
It's going to increase by $1.6 trillion.
Yeah.
If the GDP stays as it is.
No, if the growth is as it is now, or in that 2.6% range over 10 years, and maybe it'll go to 3, but
It's
that's
past
kind
3
of
right
risky.
now.
But that's kind of risky to think that it'll stay at 3
If
for
it goes
10
up
years.
0.4% to GDP, then it wipes that deficit out. You do know that.
I've seen those projections, but I'm a little bit skeptical that we won't see a recession sometime in those 10 years. I mean, we have a business cycle. Recessions happen.
Absolutely.
So why would we want to, and also the way that the tax bill's been financed, why would we want to give people like Donald Trump or Mnuchin an extra $152,000 of tax relief and give the average family $1,000 worth of tax relief? Why give Mnuchin any tax relief?
So you're talking from the 39% down to 37%. So that's where that's the money you're talking about.
That's the money I'm talking
Okay,
about.
and then
Plus the partnership, the LLC pass-throughs and reducing taxes there. So those businesses also will benefit, those individuals who run those businesses. Why give that 1% any benefit at all at this point?
And reducing that tax from 39 to 37 is going to make those people pay more tax than they ever paid before. Now, why do I say that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you remember the old trickle-down thing with the Reagan,
Yes.
yada, yada. Well, what I feel now is going to happen, it's going to be a trickle-up thing. So they're just switching this money around a little bit. They're going to give these people, a lot of them who don't pay taxes, they're going to give them a little bit more money back. Where are they going to do with that money? Well, let's say they get the $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
They want to go out and get a car. Well, let's say you want to lease a car, which they do. It costs $2,000 to lease a car. They say, well, I haven't got the $2,000, but I get that $1,000. I can scrape up $1,000. I can go out and get that car and lease it out for $143. Honda does it right now, $143, $149 lease right now with a $2,000 down on it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what's that going to do? Well, it's going to increase the production of not only Hondas and Chevys or whatever, so it's going to trickle up to the people who have the money. And so they're going to be making more money, they're going to be paying more taxes, because they are the ones who are paying the tax anyway. Half the people in the United States don't pay any income tax. You know that.
Yes. So you think that in the end,
I think the rich are going to get
giving
richer.
those
There's no question about it.
they will invest the money and they will create
Right.
jobs. through
Yeah,
that.
they don't take their money and stick it under their mattress.
Mm-hmm.
They put it back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean they're going to have more money. They're going to pay more taxes. We're going to benefit from it. We did that during the Reagan years,
Uh-huh.
and it's the same thing. They did that with John Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be making, and John Kennedy, Reagan raised taxes 11 times. A lot of people don't know that.
You still increase the deficit in the end through tax.
How much did they increase the deficit back in the Reagan years?
I
wasn't
should
very
know the
much.
numbers. I don't know the numbers.
It wasn't much, I'll tell you that. It wasn't like it was in the last 8 years, when he doubled it, went from 10 trillion to 20
Well, I
trillion.
think there is something to remember there. We had just gone through the Great Recession, and to get out of it, we
What year are you
needed to
talking about?
spend.
I mean, from the Carter.
No, I'm talking about 2007, 2008. He came into office with a 10% deficit, 10% a year deficit in government spending versus taxes. That's where a lot of the increase came about. And that was from the Bush era with the passage of the the tremendous amount of spending, TARP spending, and that was approved under Bush, and then put forth again by
Approved
Obama.
under Bush the last 6 months.
Yeah.
That's why Bush lost.
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't.
I would
approve
never
of
vote
that.
for Bush again. Never.
Okay. All right. So how are we going to get out of that recession? I mean, that recession was very serious. I mean, we've almost forgotten it now, and we've just gotten out of it. I mean, literally, part of what Trump is benefiting from, although I give him some credit for better feelings that business people have and the stock market, is that he's benefiting from the end of the Great Recession. He just happened to get in office. Things had gotten better over many years, but now he got into office when it was at the end of that recession. That helped him. But he's done some good things in terms of reducing regulations and, animal spirits, that help the stock market and help investment. So I give him some credit for that.
He gets a lot of credit for it because they changed the whole attitude of the United States. And as I say, he's going to bring that offshore money in, the trillions of dollars, and what they're going to do with it. I mean, that extra 15%.
Media and the press. Do you
Oh,
agree
the
with
press.
the idea of fake news as Donald Trump talks about it? Where
You know what bothers me about that, and I think there has been some of that. There's no question about that. But what bothers me is we used to listen to. I used to go home to listen to the Dan Rather at 6:30 every day. That's where I got my news.
Yeah.
And or anybody else, Huntley, Brinkley, and all them type of guys.
Did you trust them?
Well, I did at that time. But now,
Yes.
were they telling us things that weren't quite on the up and up, or one-sided or slanted? It makes one wonder a little bit. So,
Like what?
I don't know. I mean, did they slant the news like it's being slanted now? Because you turn on CNN and MSNBC or anything, or you listen to those people, and I'm not talking about Fox. I mean, they're slamming Trump every which way that they can because they don't like him.
Okay.
I don't care.
So I understand that. So don't you think he brings some of this onto himself?
Absolutely.
I mean, first off, do you believe that he tells the truth all the time?
I didn't say they didn't.
I mean,
Did Obama tell the truth all the time?
Okay, so when Obama...
Can you think of a lie that Obama did?
Now I'm talking about basic facts. So you can have your opinions, a president can have an opinion and a slant that they try and bring to things, but just basically lying about, or not telling the truth about facts, I think there was a difference. And I think
There's a
that
difference
Trump...
between shovel-ready jobs and you can keep the doctor and your premium you're going to save $2,500 a year.
Okay, so that was a misstatement of the law.
That was a big one.
That was a big, and it hurt him. It hurt him badly.
Or Bush
So-
Senior
so
saying,
let's-
you're going to read my lips? Read my lips, no new taxes?
Yes, and to his credit, he established the tax increase, small tax increase,
But he did.
that helped bring us into surplus for the first time. And, Clinton takes credit for it, but it was Bush who did it. Put us into surplus
Well, it was Clinton
in
and
the
Newt
90s.
Gingrich, and the people took credit for that because they took that money out of Social Security and they put it right into the general fund.
But in general, we were in better fiscal shape back then because of that tax increase. And that was done at the end of the Reagan era, and it was the increase we needed to get back into balance. Why should we be spending money we don't have? So that, I think...
Why did they do that during Obama?
So I'm a little bit of a fiscal conservative. I don't believe in spending money we don't have. And so I agreed with that tax increase, and I disagreed with deficit spending this time around, and I contrasted with the Kennedy years when what the tax decrease during the Kennedy years was an investment tax decrease where they allowed people to expense in investments. And so it was oriented towards increasing investments in the economy. To me, that makes sense.
Aren't they doing that now?
But the tax increases would do it indirectly. By lowering rates for individuals and businesses. So we talked a little bit about businesses. I believe you think that businesses will increase their investment because of this tax. their
Yeah.
tax rates going
Right,
down.
yeah.
The counter argument, and I'm not, saying it's right or wrong, I have my beliefs, but businesses are sitting on $1 trillion worth of money here that's onshore, and they haven't been investing it. They're at a round table of executives when this tax law was discussed in the Trump White House. Executives sitting there, they were asked, will you be spending this on investment? And many of them said, most of them said, no, we'll give it to shareholders. Why do we think that they're not going to just give it to shareholders?
They're not going to give it to them, or they said they were going to give it to them?
They said they would give it to shareholders.
The shareholders are who? The owners of the company.
They are. But
They are the
that's-
money, and what are they going to do with that money? They're not going to put it under their mattress like I talked about. They're going to go out and spend it on something. And what's that do? That spurns more jobs or more widgets they're going to go out and
Okay,
buy.
so that is consumption, an increasing consumption by the people who hold stocks.
I mean, if you were
are in the top 10% and up.
if you were on the board and you said, well, you know what, we're going to give some of the money back to the people who own this company because I want to keep my job, my cushy little job,
Yeah.
that I'm making millions of dollars a year, and they do that. So we're
Right.
going to give some of that money back. So when that spurns more product, whatever you want to call widgets, to go out there for these people to buy, then the rich get richer. We got to let the rich man be rich. Do you want to work for a poor man? You want to work for a
But
rich guy?
so the rich have been taking all of the productivity increases over the last 30, 40 years. All of it. None of it has gone to the middle class. The middle class, we talked about this last time, hasn't seen itself. The middle class has shrunk a little bit. Absolute dollars per capita for the middle class is about the same as it was in 1970, maybe a little higher. So all the productivity gains have gone to the top 1%. Maybe the 20% has shared it in a little bit. Is that the right thing
Well,
to
who's
do?
paying the taxes?
Well,
What percentage of the people are paying the taxes? The top 1% pay over a lot of money, 80% of the
okay,
tax.
but the middle class is struggling. Is that the right way to go? Should
middle-
we not give the middle class a little bit, maybe tax the rich a little bit more and, have them bear a little bit more of the burden, which they did, in the
I
past.
say back in the early 70s when your capital gains tax was 28%, you remember them days. And then these people were making about 26, 27% on their money on other investments. That they were paying 28% on their capital gains, or they could just put the money in the bank and they're making about the same amount of money without the risk. So why should they risk? Well, that happened, so they changed that a little bit. So they upped the capital gains so these people would make whatever type of situation on that. But it's above my pay grade. You know that.
Mhm.
I'm a street guy. I don't live in that penthouse. So I mean,
Well, I don't know. Yeah,
Well, but that's the truth. I mean, those guys.
Mhm.
I mean, I know people have a lot of money, and that's where I get these. One guy said, "Yeah, I'm going to get 2%, but hopefully I'll make more money and I'll be paid." He said, one guy told me he's going to be paying more taxes than he ever has paid when this goes through because he make more money on the
certainly
other
they
way.
pay more taxes, but in the end, wouldn't we want to give a little bit more money to the middle? And I'm not talking about the safety net. So I do want to hear what you have to say about the poor people and the safety net. So what do you think about, do you think that we should, that welfare is taking too much of our money, or?
Well, you told me last time welfare is only 2%, but it's higher.
Okay.
It's a lot higher. You're talking about direct payments and welfare 2%. Well, that's probably true. What about your EBT cards?
Oh, I found out.
Yes.
So
What's our percentage?
it's a few percent.
Just a few?
Just a few. Just a few. The reason I know, well, I can't actually go into it, but
I know what you do.
It's just a few percent.
Not over 5?
No, it's not. I can tell you that. I know indirectly, but yes, it's just a few percent.
Well, anyway,
Now that said, you know, we pay close attention to it because, you know, there are strict state laws and government laws around, you know, those, it's called EBT,
Right.
you know, around EBT, you know, but it's just a few percent.
Oh, that ain't too bad. But anyway, what I'm saying, is that part of welfare, EBT cards? Is Medicare part of welfare?
So,
Anything else, you know?
so it is true.
Earned income credit, is that
It
part of
is
welfare?
true, and we were talking about this a little bit last time, that Social Security's been expanded, and there are people who go on disability early in life, but not necessarily poor people. You know, I've encountered people who have tried to get on disability. And I'm not for it. I will tell you.
Not able-bodied.
What? Not able-bodied people. They
Right.
should not be. So
Not at
reducing that is a very good thing. But that is not going to make the big dent. We talked about this last time, where the big dent in our budget deficits, or people think that their money is basically financing welfare. But it's not. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't some percentage going to welfare, but it's not a large percentage at this point. It's already been taken out during the Clinton years, so some of that. It's come back with Social Security being expanded and some Medicare. But, you know,
Well, Social Security,
and
Medicare are right around 50% of the budget.
Social Security is 24% of the budget.
And
Medicare is 26%
that's
of the budget.
50, right?
Hmm?
That's 50, and that adds up to
But
50.
not all of that. I mean, not all of Social Security and Medicare is welfare. I mean, don't you? Do you
I understand that, but
I mean, I am looking forward to my Social Security payments. I've paid in all my life, and beyond the minimum number of years, you know, and I probably pretty much paid the maximum every year. I mean, and you know, you don't. It's not going to be my main source of income when I'm retired, but I depend on it. I want to get that Social Security. Don't you?
I've been getting it for 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, would you want to be without it?
At the present
I don't
time,
mean you. Would you want it reduced for the country?
That thing is above my pay grade, because there's a lot of people who are with that. They take it at 62, and then you're probably going to take it a little bit later, probably 67.
Yeah, but you lose out if you take it too early. You know, actuarial studies, you know, have shown it's probably not to your advantage to take it at age 62. It's better to wait a few years if you can, and you actually get less if you take it at age 62 over.
If you can live long.
If you
If you
live
take it at
long
62 and you die at 65, you don't get any of the big money.
enough. True.
I mean, there's a lot of that going on.
Right.
So I mean, I couldn't. I took it at 63, which I got 80%.
Yeah.
So it's well, I'm lucky. I'm
So-
to 73.
So, do you favor smaller government?
Of course I do.
Okay, and you know, given the numbers, 24% goes to Social Security, 26% to Medicare. Most of that is legitimate and not welfare. That is people like me and you
Right.
who are going to collect Social Security. Medicare, similar. Defense is 16%. So now we're at 66% of the
Budget.
budget. Interest on the debt is 9%. Now we're at 69%.
75,
Retirees and vets are another 8%. We're approaching 80%. Where do we cut the budget? Where do we cut it? You know, and the rest is transportation and education and science and medicine. Where do we get extra money out of this budget?
What do you want extra money for?
No, I'm just saying, how do you reduce government? We already got a deficit. We actually should be collecting a little bit more in taxes. I'm a fiscal conservative. But we're going to pay this money out. We should be paying for ourselves. So how are we going to reduce the size of government? Where? I take it you want to increase defense, right?
right now, I want to get back where we were. Did you know that there's jets, fighter jets sitting on the ground right now because they've had parts cannibalized off of them to do that? And that they've been doing that for a while. Now, with that being said, where do you take the money? You say, do you take the money off of welfare? Do you take off Social Security? I think if we just don't increase it for a while, and when the economy comes back up again, which I believe it's going to do, they're going to have a lot of money. Even when you cut the
Well, we've got a 3 or 4% deficit right now. Also, Social Security and Medicare, we have an entitlements crisis coming, where there's too much that are going out from Social Security and Medicare.
That's correct.
That's what Ryan wants to address.
That's at the present way we're going now. But if the
Yeah.
economy picks up, what happens? People are working, and what happens when they work? They pay more money. So if these people go back to work, which they're going to be going back to work pretty soon, if you got more people on the rolls,
Yeah.
then you're going to get more money, and that's what happened during Reagan. They had so much money. That's why he got him and what was that guy's name, the head of the House?
Oh,
Said his name, I can see him.
Tip O'Neill.
Tip O'Neill. You know,
Yeah.
they weren't the best of friends, but they talked every day.
Right. There was more bipartisan activity.
Right. So it's so they had Tip kept saying, well, I want to increase this or I want to increase that. So they did. They increased the taxes because they had a lot of money coming in.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. I mean, if you're just, but remember what a gallon of gas cost back in Reagan days, what it costs to today.
Mm-hmm.
A jar of peanut butter's doubled in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not inflation, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm. So,
A gallon of milk is $3. Costs more than gas.
but inflation hasn't really increased dramatically over the last.
They made your
10
money
years.
worth less. So therefore, what is that? Deflation?
No, I know, but if we look at how inflation has trended over the last 10 years in the U.S., we've been almost close to zero some years, and at maybe 2%, it's not very high, based on historical standards. Inflation.
What gets inflated when you're talking inflation? And how do you
I'm just talking
do you
about the
define
CPI, the government, measurement of inflation.
but I mean, we've had inflation, you don't even know it. As I just said, a jar of peanut butter in the last couple of years have went up 100%.
But looking at overall costs, and that's what the market basket, the CPI, does, we haven't had all that much inflation over the last, 10, 15 years. It's been pretty low.
Price of your cars, they've gone way up. I bought my first Tahoe at $24,000. 76 now.
They're
I'm not going to
very
buy a new
expensive.
Tahoe.
I know, Tahoe's are
That's
very
not inflation? What is?
expensive. Yeah,
No, that's 3 times.
yeah.
I bought my Yukon at $38,000.
Mm-hmm.
1999.
So back to Trump a little bit. One of the things that disturbs some people is we were talking about whether he's truthful or not, and whether he basically distorts facts. I think there's a difference between sort of just basic trying to make your point and trying to influence versus disrespect for facts. Do you feel like he disrespects the facts at all, or do you feel like he's truthful? Let's take the size of the inauguration. Let's take the birther thing.
Well, you know my opinion about that.
I know you told me that
His mother was a citizen.
Yeah.
Okay, he can become president. I don't
Okay,
care.
but Trump made a big deal out of it.
Sure he did.
What did you think about that?
I didn't agree with him. Just because I didn't say I like Trump. I heard me say that one time.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's just love him or hate him, he's our president.
Okay.
But and I told you before, he was not my first choice.
Uh-huh.
and it was Ted Cruz.
Right.
But okay, so we got this guy. I
Yeah.
think he's doing a heck of a lot better job than Hillary would have done. 99% of what this is John Kennedy wrote this. 99% of what politicians running for office is trite.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're lucky to get the 1% done. Almost everything that Trump said he was going to do is getting done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, nobody has done what this guy has done. He's done this in 11 months.
So again, you mentioned 170 things, but what are the main
173.
things? What are the main things?
Well, he passed that tax bill. That's the premier thing.
Okay.
Okay. Whether it's good or bad, he did get that passed.
Okay. What else?
You got the regulations. For every regulation you write, we have to get rid of 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. So now I can't remember the other 171, but he's done a whole not real big things like the stream for the coal miners and things like that, because they're worried about what the coal miners are putting into the stream.
Yes.
You know, the arsenic and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
he's released. He's
Okay, so what
reduced
do you think about
regulations
that?
on coal.
Okay, so we were talking about coal mining. So let's talk about coal mining for a second versus, one of the things that Trump has made a big deal out of is bringing back the jobs to the coal mines. Is that realistic? I mean, it's not an industry of the future. That's an industry of the past, isn't it?
I think it's an industry of keeping status quo with what we got till we get some alternatives going working for us. When they chop that, put all those regulations on the coal miners and things such as that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It stopped those people, and those people probably had to go on this welfare system that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But when they're self-sufficient, they want. How much better is a person being self-sufficient than one who's a slug sitting in his apartment waiting for his welfare check?
Well, no,
I mean, how much better do you feel about
I'm
yourself?
certainly not disagreeing that we don't want people employed, but don't we want to keep the regulations there that, for example, prevent pollution of streams because of coal mining and that kind of thing? Why wouldn't we want to keep that regulation going?
Yeah, I don't know what the regulation is. I'm gonna have to look at it. I just read about it yesterday, and that's one of the regulations that they took off. But I think it's the responsibility of the coal miner people, the owners, have got to keep us safe.
Okay.
And if they don't, then they.
But people don't do it companies don't do it without some regulation.
There's a lot of regulations out there. I know you're not in business. It'd be hard to start a business nowadays.
So one of the things that I've noticed, and I wonder if you've noticed it too, is a lot of these regulations are local. They have nothing to do with the federal government when you try and build a new facility, what stops you a lot of time is not federal regulation, it's your local zoning board. I find that a little frustrating. And I think that a lot of times people talk about the swamp in Washington. What about the swamp right here, or wherever anyone is? What do you think about that?
The local politics is one cruel son of a gun at times.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be for instance, you want to put a sign up for your business? You know it takes you 3 months to get a sign to stick in your front yard, and you got restrictions on your sign. That's why when you go down the road and you see these old gas stations or someplace that they had a sign out and the thing, it's still there.
But that's not federal regulation.
That's the local cruel. That's what you're just talking about.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think people get them mixed up though, a little bit, don't you?
What, the feds and the state and the local?
Well, local, yeah. And they talk about being mired in regulation. I mean, I could just tell you, trying to do some things, in locally. I don't want to get into the specifics. You know what I'm talking about in Baroda or anywhere else.
All right.
You run into
recent?
You run into the zoning board, and it's or you run into people who don't want B&Bs or people who don't want rentals. And,
you know about that marijuana thing that guy wanted to do?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. Bro, it turned him down.
Okay.
And I just found
Well,
out.
there you could see, but when to take another example, when Bill DeSchaff, the owner of DeBlon, wants to renovate a house he bought next to the winery so he can have some B&B guests there. and the people next door are afraid of who's going to be renting and whether they're going to be disturbing them. I just don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's local.
But that's,
My family's been involved in local politics for 3 generations, and I had an opportunity to do this,
yeah,
but I turned it down.
yeah.
I sat on a board for 18 months, and trees grow faster than what would be done.
Now, which board were you on?
I was on Lincoln Township board, not the trustee board, but I was appointed to the board to see if the township needed a manager,
Yeah.
and that was in the Barsati days. I don't know if you remember him.
I didn't.
Well,
I wasn't
he was a controversial thing, and a friend of mine, and he called me up and said, they're really picking on this guy pretty hard, the board is. It kind of reminded me of the Trump situation, see?
Right.
They wanted to impeach him, actually. They wanted to get him off the board, they tried to shame him and things like that. This guy calls me up and he goes, what do you think? Yeah, let's give it a go. So they were putting signs out for him and stuff like this, and he became the township supervisor.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want him to have that, he's only one vote, but they wanted to have a manager, and so we were on the board to see if we could get that. Well, the board voted to get a manager. That was the majority of the board that voted. But what about the minority people that didn't want it?
Yeah.
So we got our name in the paper above the fold. Oh, that was like crazy. But it was very similar to what's going on now in the swamp. But the politics there, what that was going on, it was the old cronies and your buddies and all this type of thing. And that's what's going on right now. And then the Republicans don't like Trump because they can't be bought. We obviously know that. And the Democrats and Republicans are going against Trump. And that's the way I feel. So would I vote for Trump again? Yeah, I think I would. I wouldn't vote.
So let's talk about, you wouldn't vote for Hillary. You wouldn't vote for Hillary.
I wouldn't vote for Hillary.
Now it sounds like you didn't like Obama. In fact, last time you were talking about, you felt that he showed favoritism towards Muslims and might even have been a Muslim.
And that's obvious. But he was definitely a sympathizer with him. There's no question about that.
Now, why do you say that? He had a lot of drone strikes and he killed a lot of Muslims. He didn't want to. He wanted to be careful in his language. Maybe too careful. Maybe not.
Well, there's a lot of Muslims who killed a lot of Muslims.
No, I agree. But
the Sunnis.
Why do you think he was a Muslim, or do you think he?
I think he was definitely a sympathizer. There's no question about that. He could be a Muslim, and
do you think that affected his policies?
Oh yeah, of course.
In what way?
Well, look what he pulled out of Iran.
Iraq. Yeah.
And there's several things like that. Just leave it to say, what's going on here?
So I don't totally disagree with you that he overlearned the lessons of George Bush's interventionism, right? Where we were trying to make the world democratic in our own image. That was not smart. We gave free rein to Iran by doing that, by toppling Saddam Hussein. And maybe Obama was too cautious. I don't disagree with you.
Doesn't make you wonder that.
But I never thought of him as a Muslim. I just thought of him as overly cautious and as not a smart player and he didn't use our power the way he could have in the world. But I didn't think he was a Muslim, personally.
Well, I might have said that last time, but I've been thinking about that and I've been looking at it, and well, it definitely was a sympathizer. But look at Germany. Look what they're doing. They let all those Muslims come in. Merkel, she's no question, because they need people, they say, but now they're having trouble with that.
Right.
Look at Sweden. They're kicking them out now.
Yes.
And France is having a big problem. So is England's having a big problem with that situation.
Right.
I mean, they're chipping these Muslims. Now, and I'm not saying that the religious Muslims. I'm talking about the so-called radical Muslims, and to me, that's not a religion. It's like a political party.
Yes. So a lot of those people who have been radicalized, they've been living in those countries for years.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you that they're a problem to some extent in those countries.
Yeah, they're having problems now.
But it's not the new immigrants. Now I'm also not saying that it's smart that there isn't some. I can understand when people are saying we ought to be cautious
Look at
about
Dearborn.
taking in more.
Look at Dearborn. The other one is Nashville, Tennessee. People don't know that. I got a friend who lives down there. He says it's terrible. You can't go in certain areas in Nashville, Tennessee anymore. Same way over by Hamtramck in Dearborn, Michigan. It's they got that black flag with that white chicken scratch written on there. That's the way we look at it on the streets. I mean, it's just like something's going on I don't like.
Okay.
You know, and then
And do you think Obama was
a sympathizer with all that.
Sympathized with all that.
Look at all the Somalis up in.
So do you think a smart way of reacting in terms of increasing our influence in the world is to piss off our allies, the way Trump is doing?
You think he's pissing them off?
Oh yeah. Don't you?
No.
I'm not talking about Israel, but what about Germany? What about France? The European Union?
I think you should piss Merkel off, to be honest with you. I really do. I mean, she's a socialist. This is, the difference between a socialist and a communist is that the communists can wait a little longer. They're more patient.
Okay, but he hasn't shown a lot of respect for NATO. I mean, he's been brought back in a line to show more respect for NATO. Is that a good thing?
He's backed off a little bit with that.
He has backed off.
But, they should pay. Just like with the UN thing.
Okay.
I think he's doing that right.
Don't disagree they should pay, but there also seems to be a feeling that they can't rely on the U.S. anymore.
Who, NATO?
NATO, the European countries.
Theater?
Yeah. Don't think they have the same level of trust, do you?
No. They had no trust at all with Obama. None whatsoever. But who's the first one that goes in and gives relief in all the disasters, and who goes in right away and gives what they have? Look at that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. By the way, just as a fact, 1% of our budget goes towards international aid. I'm not saying that that's large or small, but that's just the number.
That's the number.
That's the number, 1%.
And aid as far as what kind of aid?
Non-military aid.
Should we give it to countries that don't hate us, or that hate us, or what?
I think we should do it in a way that furthers our interests, and that's the way it's been done. We don't do it to be friends. We do it to influence countries.
And they still resent us for giving them whatever we give them.
Yes, but it's a part of soft power. It's a part of, diplomacy to provide that money. And China's stepping in where we don't provide it. Let's take the Palestinians. You don't think China's going to step in and pay that paltry $250 million to the Palestinians? It's chicken scratch to them. It's chicken scratch to us. $250 million. It's not chicken scratch to the Palestinians.
China's going like in Africa. They're in Africa.
Yeah, they're doing a lot. Yes,
they're doing a lot in Africa.
Yeah, and do we want to give up that influence? Because we'll see a world where we don't have the ability to create the rules. Is it better to have chaos in the world, or do we want to have world order?
When hasn't there been chaos in the world?
Well, there's always chaos, but there's been a set of rules. But it's increased over the last.
When hasn't there been a war?
There have always been wars.
Always something going on. Remember Nicaragua? We had that way back in the 30s. The people don't know that.
Yeah.
They had that big thing going on down there.
Yeah.
Just like they're not teaching us.
So maybe what we're talking about is just this sense that America does not have the leadership in the world that it had before. And the question is that okay? I mean, we don't have the ability to create the rules.
If the United States falls, so does this world. We are the leader of the whole world.
And so is Trump, by withdrawing from TPP, by creating the noises we're creating with NAFTA, and the negotiations, from what I've read, aren't going so well. Are we going to, become isolationists, or are we going to increase our influence? I think that's the question.
Our influence is increasing. And I feel that it is. We got We still got the South America to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's still it's a third world country, but I think it's even lower than that. I mean, look how big Brazil is and the problem that they have down there. Because Brazil's a huge country with untold resources. And,
Right.
and by the way, so is Russia.
Mm-hmm.
That's a country with untold resources.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like, the world's
And
chipping
what's
away
up
at it.
with Trump's fawning over Russia? What do you think about that? It's whenever Russia's mentioned, he sort of, tries to say Vladimir Putin's a genius, and I love Vladimir Putin, and what's up with that?
First of all, you got to realize Putin didn't get there by being a dummy.
He's not a dummy.
You know.
No, he's shrewd.
Yeah.
Very shrewd.
And he is
Very
the
shrewd.
richest man in the world.
Well, yes, he's corrupt. It's a corrupt
I
economy.
didn't say he wasn't corrupt.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve.
Hi. Yeah.
Steve works here.
Hi, Steve.
This is Bill.
We're doing a little film.
Oh, yeah?
We're just talking about nothing.
Oh, we're almost done.
Okay, I got to leave at 3 anyway.
Okay. So anyway, what changes, if you had to say one or two things that have to change in our political system, what would you like to see?
I like the changes that are being made now.
Okay.
Draining of the swamp is just a mantra of his.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to, well, man, it just, I can feel what, I just like, I can't show you what the wind is,
Yes.
but I know what it is when I feel it.
Right.
But, and I feel something here that what he's doing is helping us,
Yeah.
you and I,
Yeah.
and you're going to benefit we're pretty much on the same page, maybe 3/4 of it, we are, you know what I'm saying, but I wouldn't, the full page, no, probably not, but I'm that way with a lot of people, I'm still friends with a lot of people.
Well, I have really enjoyed talking with you, and I think that